Welcome to Symposium 2020. This is a virtual recording today where I'm very fortunate to have John Nowicki with the Oakland A's as our special guest, along with Paige Johnson, Tom Nelson, and Johnny Galvin. So welcome everyone. And John, it seems like yesterday you were on campus and where these four students are and getting ready to make it into the real world. So thanks so much for being with us today.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jim. Would have been great to be back in Athens for our 5-year. I know we had most of the class that were excited to be back, but being back virtually with the students is a good second option for sure.
Well, and just think of the hundreds of thousands of people that are going to see this recording now. So
I'm sure we'll get those ratings going.
So John, when we were talking about this presentation, I said, have you got something that you've been working on lately that would be good for a presentation? So what I'm going to do is let you run through the deck and then just interject some questions along the way, because I got a pretty good feeling of what the students already know about sponsorship, having been in my RevGen class, and then they're also working on their capstone projects right now. So they might have some really good questions for you at the end of the session. So let's go ahead and get started. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, just for the setup, because I think it's always good to understand the contextual nature of where these ideas or prospecting really starts in sponsorship. ELYSIAN Brewing is a craft brewery based up in Seattle. They were recently acquired by Anheuser-Busch as part of kind of their nation as well as global strategy to continue to diversify their product offering. And funny enough, came across them at a local brewery in Oakland. They were doing a kind of a tap takeover, product giveaway experiential, and after having a couple pints of their product, and then actually a couple days later went to a Warriors game and saw that they were part of the Warriors AB partnership portfolio. I was like, hey, there's something here, and this could be a really interesting group to go after. And so really from that point moving forward, it was, once you've identified them as a key prospect, now it's the biggest question is how do you get in touch with the right people? And just through that process, kind of identified the general manager of their group as kind of the right contact. And now what's the most important is now once you get a hold of them, what are you going to say? Luckily for us, the head of marketing who this note fell into his inbox, he grew up a fan of the Bash brother Oakland Athletics, and that was Mark McGuire and Jose Canseco. And so he said, hey, I'd love to take a call from the Oakland A's. Northern California is a priority market for our expansion. And so this is really what you'll see in this deck was after one really, I would say, high quality, kind of 30 to 40 minute get to know you conversation with myself and our head of partnership marketing. This was our first take back to them of making Oakland, but really Northern California, ELYSIAN Brewing's home market 2.0. And so what you'll see kind of sprinkled throughout this presentation is a lot of the best practices they took from Seattle in their Seattle Sounders as well as Seattle Seahawks partnership, and really putting an Oakland / Northern California lens to it. So you'll see a few examples that are placed in here just to show that connection point. Let them know we did our homework, and we want to take them back ideas that are easy to say yes to, and lets us know that we're thinking about them as their brand and how to sell product.
Awesome. And whoever your graphic artist is, kudos, because I had a chance to look through the deck before, and it's really, really rich. So let's go ahead and get started with the next slide.
Absolutely.
All right, so I'm going to kind of rearrange the screen here a little bit as we do this. But when I was looking at this slide, like you guys are coming off a pretty good 2019. So is that typically the way you would start most of your meetings with a new prospect?
With this example, with somebody that's not from Oakland and not from the greater Bay Area, we do have to do a ton of education to let brand partners and prospective brand partners know actually how quality of our on the field product that actually is. And kind of on that Bash Brothers nod, if you look at that center logo, that was a moniker that we actually inserted back into our brand for the 2019 playoffs. We had the most home runs in A's history last year. So just given that nugget that they had shared, with that being that connection point, we wanted to kind of subtly tell that story that we've got a great product on the field. Again, kind of with the Seattle connection, they're used to the Seattle Seahawks, who have this connotation of being the loudest stadium in the NFL, a very rabid fan base. And then the Seattle Sounders just won the MLS championship this past year. So we felt it was important to make sure that they know that we are a winning product on the field, and really highlight the mass audience that we do have, because candidly, for the folks that do know the A's, we have had some attendance troubles in the past, as well as we play in a football stadium. General, the viewing dynamics of our ballpark, 25,000 in a 50,000 seat stadium still looks relatively small.
Right. And then I was talking to you the other day in prep for this session, but you really are Oakland's team, and maybe you're going to get to that in a couple of slides, but as the Raiders make their move over to Vegas, you guys are digging in, and promise of what looks to be a new facility by 2024. I think that would be important for a brewery like this, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that is, as we transition from the 2019 calendar year to 2020, officially the Warriors have announced that they're going to be playing in Las Vegas this year. The Chase Center over in San Francisco has been open now for about 6 or 7 months. So we are now officially Greater Oakland, as well as the rest of the East Bay's, closest proximity team. So that is a huge moment that we've been waiting for. And I think with Corona, we might be waiting just a little bit longer to really plant that flag officially as the last team.
Well, I'm sure you guys will do a great job, and got a lot of Bobcats in the organization, so we're excited to have you there.
Absolutely, yeah.
You want to go to the next slide?
Absolutely. Kind of, Jim, to your point on, everything that we do is bigger than baseball. It's really about who the organization is as a community stakeholder, and really where we think baseball sits in the ecosystem of sports and entertainment. It is that family-centric space that you can go on a weeknight, a weekend. Everyone can participate, pretty low barrier to entry from a youth participation, as well as, recreational point of view. And this story here just kind of tells really as a community asset where we prioritize ourselves. And as we think more about ELYSIAN as a brand, again, they tell a pretty proud Seattle narrative. And as we kind of flip on that home market 2.0, we want them to know by aligning with us, they're aligning with another team that truly cares about its community. And just to call out a few elements on the slide here, our Future A's program is our youth sports and recreational program. We'll have over just 20,000 participants going into the 2020 year. Our educational programs, again, getting in the classroom, as well as the after-school programs, just the demographics, as well as the need that exists in kind of proper Oakland from a school system. We've really found that to be an area where we can get deeper and wider, and continue to make an impact. And then the final element is volunteerism, which is a pillar of our organizational culture, where we've committed to volunteering 10,000 hours as a front office, as well as the amount of community opportunities that we allow our fans to also participate in. So we love to tell this story, and again, probably not something we would lead with in every conversation, but we know that this deck, these ideas are going to go beyond the maybe 1 or 2 decision makers that we're working with. So we want to make sure that we're able to educate them on the Oakland athletics, and again, a pretty easy to consume format.
John, I'm gonna throw a question here. Like, when you see how engaged you are in the community, how big of a community relations staff do you have to implement all these programs?
Yeah, from really the structure wise, we've got a vice president over community relations, a director, and then we've got about 5 full-time colleagues that have a pillar that they represent or oversee. So we've got one gentleman whose title is manager of community baseball. And so all of our youth baseball programming, he played baseball at Cornell in undergrad. He's from the Bay Area, so he's got a lot of rich relationships in the youth baseball and softball space. So he, as well as another colleague, directly oversee all of our programming. And then the 2 other volunteerisms, as well as our educational platforms, 2 other colleagues, that's their job. No different than managing a naming rights partner or a key sponsorship partner. That is where they spend 100% of their day. This is really, I would say, kind of a complement to the other 2 slides I shared before. Really kind of that myth busting or any sort of high level qualifications of, are the Oakland Athletics a group worthy of partnering with? Where are the benefits of a relationship with them? And so just to call out a few elements within here that I think are pretty powerful, and really where we like to focus on is kind of our ability to scale beyond the baseball stadium, and just noting some of those professional news organizations that have found stories of the Oakland Athletics. For those of you that are familiar, the Moneyball narrative was really kind of the brand that led the A's for probably about the last 15 years. And so we're still very much a very efficient baseball team when it comes to product on the field. But also innovation has always been a really kind of in the brand's DNA. And so both from an innovation and ticketing practices, my first year here with the organization, we hosted the game's ever first free baseball game. So we've continued to find ways to take our brand off of the sports section and into the rest of news and media. And with a partner like ELYSIAN, they're very focused on driving beer sales in venue. But second to that, it's how do you use the 365 days a year? How do you use the in-market, on-premise or off-premise beverage accounts to drive sales through an association with the club? So that's something we'd focus on in a slide like this, more high-level contextual.
Okay, great.
Now moving on, I think as in any great presentation as well as partnership discussion, it's how do you take as much of the conversation away from the property and really make it about the person you're working with, and really focusing on, in this example, ELYSIAN Brewing. As we've kind of dived into getting to know them, this kind of home market 2.0, this playbook. And really when we think about craft beer as well as, a brand that's entering into a new market, you got to find moments to own and establish on yourself. You can't just be off on the sidelines. You have to truly own something, and you'll see that filtered through this presentation, as well as both fan as well as community activations. Through our discovery conversation with ELYSIAN, they talked about the Seattle Sounders supporters section being a highly coveted group, as well as Seattle Seahawks season ticket holders. They wanted to gain access to those individuals. So one of the programs you'll see here is how do we integrate the ELYSIAN brand directly with those highly coveted customers. And then the third is really that hospitality element of, how do you leverage the game day experience for some of their key accounts and have this truly be a sales driving effort over and over again. So we typically would pause in a slide like this just to kind of reaffirm with the partner we're speaking with, does it sound like we're on the right track? And then typically with an investment range down here, this is just informing them of, hey, this is the direction we're going to take this conversation. Everything you see in the slides moving forward and the ideas were kind of built around this general investment range. It's just a really great way to do a temperature check, make sure everyone feels good, and can understand if there's any red flags from this point moving forward for the rest of the conversation.
Okay, great. Can I ask you to go back to the slide before this? Because Tom Nelson has a question, and I'm going to pull him up. Go ahead with your question.
So John, my question is, obviously looking at the social media part, digital assets and properties are becoming so important to brands that are looking to partner. Are there any other additional criteria that you go into depth, like instead of just likes and followers? Are there other things that brands look for, such as like an engagement rate with like the team, or the engagement rate with the brand, or estimated values of value that can be brought back to the brand through social media channels or digital channels?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, in terms of starting a conversation, probably high level is where we like to start. I think where I'm seeing more and more brands as well as agencies inquire is past performance in the example of case studies. I think we all know with digital, you can catch lightning in a bottle with some great content and some great moments, but nothing's guaranteed. We can say on average past performances on how we fare, but I think similar to how we don't sell most of our marketing assets on a CPM basis, most properties are pretty hesitant to go down that path of doing obligations or guaranteed metrics. I think in the way that the industry is trending, you're going to see more and more of those. But how we typically, in concert with Major League Baseball's advanced media, BAM, as they're affectionately known as, we really would take an example like you described of, hey, we really want to build an impression-based or a content driving feature where engagement is the key metric. Establish some appropriate benchmarks based upon where we feel comfortable, and work towards those, both on a frequency as well as, client expectation.
Gotcha. Thank you, John.
John, can you go back to the next slide? Because Paige has got a great question for you on the investment range. So let me bring her back and let her fire away. Paige, go ahead.
Yeah, so you were kind of saying this was a great point to do a temperature check with the client, and I was just wondering if ever there had been a conversation where the client kind of said that you weren't on track, or it wasn't really what you wanted, and how you reroute the conversation if that does happen.
Yeah, no, I think it's a fair point. I think more than not, certain brands maybe that aren't as used to buying in sports, they might see an investment slide and be taken back. And sports is not a typically cheap marketing investment. And now, again, going back to Tom's point on the efficiencies you can have in digital media across the board. So yeah, that certainly happens. And really, I think in this example, this is a full program built out, which would include that general investment range. In the event that, let's just say we're off by a significant denomination, if we're pitching a $500,000 program and the brand conversation goes flat out, hey, for the rest of 2020, I only have $100,000. We may, on the fly, go, well, hey, let's walk through the partnership program that we put together here. Let's just hear your candid feedback about which of these programs is probably your top priority. And then it will be on us to determine as the property, hey, can we make that $100,000 stretch as far as we possibly can for maybe that one or two program elements. So it's totally collaborative. I think you never want to shut the door on a conversation unless your property has a threshold where it might be a conversation, pauser for that instance, which candidly, we're just not in that position with the A's. We're always trying to find a way to make a partnership work, but as well maintain, price integrity.
Cool.
Awesome. Thanks.
All right. You want to move on to the next slide?
Yes, sir. So just kind of moving into what we're going to try to establish in this context is how the relationship could go beyond the Coliseum doors. While we know for a beverage partner, they're going to make, some percentage of the revenue back in a direct pour or direct beverage relationship. We cannot oversee those due to ABC laws and regulation, we'll need to work with our concessionaire. So really we want to focus on what we can do from a brand engagement away from the stadium. And then you'll see filtered in throughout here how we really take this relationship into the larger market. What you'll see here is pretty standard in the beverage as well as CPG space, kind of a designation of a proud partner of the Oakland Athletics. With the Seattle Seahawks, they've actually got the official craft beer designation. You know, in our current space, we have about 5 craft beverage partners that are everything from probably equal size to Elysian Brewing, to maybe Lagunitas, if you guys are familiar with that brand, Firestone Walker, another very popular California craft. But then in this example, with Elysian really being a pretty progressive craft beer, this idea of being able to produce their own athletics brew. We've seen this from a number of craft beer partners across the industry, many of which are in the Budweiser portfolio, of wanting to really co-create a product with a property. And so that was something that they asked for, and we had built into this program. And then we like to just talk about our most valuable asset is the A's brand. And that's what you kind of see here, a few of the uses of the A's script, a pretty historic and popular brand within Major League Baseball. Just to show that we've done our research, you know, again, that in-market IP 1.0, these are 2 examples from Elysian, and again, creating the noise with the Seattle Seahawks, and then this official designation, the official craft beer of the Sounders. And again, you start to see a little bit of Elysian's brand. You know, Seattle and Oakland, probably not too different from just like a cultural demographic. You know, it's a very prideful city. Art, culture are other elements, you know, big graphic community. We've actually done a number of campaigns that are all graffiti based. So you can kind of see some of that similarities here. So just something we want to call out to let them know that this would be something we were interested in. And as we think about partners, and who we want to partner with, the opportunity to have a brand that's leveraging our IP in the market is something that we're definitely interested in. Our beverage partner on the soda side, Keurig Dr. Pepper, prior to Corona, they actually just launched an A's edition for their 7-Up, their Canada Dry, as well as their Squirt product. Leveraging IP in the marketplace. So as we're exploring new craft beer partners, this was a high priority from leadership, was not only bringing on a new partner, but one that will leverage our IP in the marketplace.
John, hang on one second. Taylor had a question on pricing with new startups. So Taylor, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm curious about if you've worked with any startups like recently, and what that threshold looks like. I know there's like a brand, like you need to uphold your brand, so you can't go below a like certain number, but what does that look like, and like how would you work with someone that's like trying to break through into the industry, into like sports sponsorships? Yeah,
I think there's teams all across the ecosystem that have played in this space before. Probably to touch back more on my NASCAR experience, there are a number of team owners in NASCAR that become angel investors in startups or rising companies, and they use their relationship with the team as a B2B relationship, but then as well, they use the marketing value that the team can provide to start on that brand exposure that you probably wouldn't get in a startup capacity. Specifically with us in the A's, we are probably more in a space where we're finding brands that have never done sports marketing before, and we're starting those conversations and helping them jumpstart their sports marketing portfolio. One of those, as an example, shout out to another Ohio Bobcat, Andy Szabo, inked a deal with Impossible Foods, who is, went from really a startup in the Bay Area. Their production facility is in Oakland. And so we signed their first ever sports partnership. And they're going to use us as really a case study of how they grow into more of a national play. So probably don't have a ton of examples, but something I know that in the Bay Area, there's plenty of our competitors that have started some of these startup-based conversations.
Cool. Good question, Taylor. If anybody else has questions, just keep zipping through my email and I'll take them. Okay. All right, John. Let's roll to the
awesome
line.
Next up, kind of this branded destination. We talked about how can Elysian Brewing come in and create an ownable space, as well as really make an impact with our fans. As a brand that is not from the Bay Area, you're going to have to stand out from your competition. California's crafts are pretty proud and pretty prominent here. So they're going to need to bring something to the table to really own and earn that drink share from our fans. So in kind of connection with our leadership team and stadium operations team, we're exploring CapEx projects all this off season. Where are these ownable destinations within the Coliseum that a brand partner can come in and really in conjunction with us, elevate the guest experience. So we've got this patio space located outside the Stadium Bowl where we really identified that as a beer garden destination. Now, how is the way we were looking to spin this and really get that much deeper with our fan base was to turn this into a beer garden dedicated just for our season ticket holders, our A's Access members. So this was an idea that we had kicked around for a while, and we still have plans to do for the upcoming season when it does get up and running, but in conjunction with a beverage partner to build out this communal space. Something that we've done about a handful of times in the stadium already and continue to build that space out. And then just to kind of roll through, again, more on that brand storytelling. Again, you kind of see here on the sign, the welcome A's Access members to Elysian Beer Garden. We were thinking through a number of creative solutions of, hey, if you as a general attendee of the game purchase an Elysian beer at one of our general concession stands, could you get a surprise and delight moment or an access to this beer garden? So again, finding ways to kind of carry on that conversation as well as connection point to Elysian. And really with them being a part of the Anheuser-Busch family, we found ways to slide in other Budweiser products into the guest experience as part of this beer garden.
Hey, John. Johnny, Alvin's got a question on the distribution and costs. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, I just have a question about, of course, something like the beer garden, you guys have, like you said, the capabilities for something like that. But of course, it goes more into just signage where you're incorporating their beer and they want to add their own experience to it because it's their brand associated to that area. And I was just wondering the distribution of cost and how much usually a partner puts into that compared to you guys when it's your space, but their brand being associated with it as well.
No, it's a great question. The way we like to formalize in the example of a space like this where it's going to take a capital expenditure investment to get the space up and running. As part of our negotiation with the brand partner, we would really, in a detailed format, outline what would be included from their investment. So in the example of a relationship, if someone's coming in and purchasing the beer garden entitlement, it would come with certain signs, placements, production and installation for those. Again, the staffing costs that we would provide to have, again, taps, coolers, employees, guest services, security, all those infrastructure pieces. But if a brand partner wanted to go above and beyond in the guest experience, those costs would be on them. And so typically from a contract format, you'd spell out those details there. I think it's a great point, especially when you look to build out these spaces. It's really important to get the right partner because you want a brand partner that's going to invest in the guest experience because that's when you as well as them will both get the true value out of the experience. Brands like Jack Daniel's, famous for building out some great bars and restaurant spaces. Budweiser, the same. They really they take their initial investment and in some places probably match that in the build out. And so while you wouldn't put that in a contractual obligation, at least at partnership at this level, it's definitely in the consideration from an expectation.
And
then,
John,
sorry.
Well, quick build on to that. If we went out to this beer garden and this deal went through, my guess is that we would see a wide variety of Anheuser-Busch products. It's not just going to be the one brand. Is that a correct assumption, or is it all dedicated to the brands of the microbrew?
I know you're correct, and I think just from a distribution perspective, yeah, you would probably look to, in this example, Anheuser-Busch distributor partner that we've got a relationship with, as well as for us, Budweiser is the lead brand for AB in their baseball portfolio. They have 2 ownable destinations already in the stadium. So yeah, we viewed this and really with all of our beer relationships, as we look to integrate them in the stadium, you typically look for a craft to complement a domestic, or a craft to complement an import product. Right. Just knowing, and then as well, a non-alcoholic beverage as well, knowing that you're really there to serve the consumer, and the branded space is really more about creating the atmosphere.
Cool. And then real quick, Paige has got a question that ties into future space with a new stadium down the road. And go ahead, Paige.
Yeah, so I was just wondering, once that new stadium is built, will these spaces kind of carry over to the new facility? And is that discussed in the pitch at all?
It's actually a huge consideration for where we are currently investing these CapEx dollars. So the general theme was, we are not going to invest in enhancing these spaces where we don't want to test, learn, and try for the new stadium. So we've got a number of in-stadium or in-bowl facing spaces that were extremely popular. Now, the narrative here of why this was dedicated just for a season ticket holder is because we're trying to find ways to increase the value proposition of being a member of the A's. And so as a member, you have access to the stadium overall, but so does everybody else, right? You could come to one game and you can enjoy a space that we call the Treehouse, which our partners at Diageo entitle, and be amongst the group. Now, how do we create a more special / premium location for those A's Access members, and really give them the love that they deserve, probably being the most committed to the A's family. So very much in the consideration, and yeah, as part of that pitch or that narrative, would be as, hey, let's design this space together and create a great guest experience. But hey, while we're working through the schematics over the next 12, 18, 24 months, let's actually build out maybe an Elysian beer garden tap house, which you'll see a little bit here as I kind of slide to the next slide. This is actually Elysian Brewing's tap house up in Seattle. 2 photos that you see where they do pre-match gatherings for their Seattle Sounders supporters. So again, kind of that narrative of, hey, this could be your home market 2.0 beer garden. Again, the supporters come there before the game, great pre-game and post-game gathering location. And then as soon as maybe the match starts or the first innings gets going, people kind of trickle into the crowd. But the great thing about baseball, it's a great product to enjoy, even if you're just listening to the audio experience. And you can do that from a patio, get a little sunshine, and stretch your legs for a few innings. Great question. Thanks for asking. And I can kind of move through these a little bit quicker, but a little bit more of that fan activation, right? They stress to us that signage, experiential is great, but like, we need to be talking directly to the fan, knowing that their consideration at the concession stand, as well as their consideration when they're at their local grocery store or our beer liquor store. How do we make Elysian top of mind? And so again, kind of this general narrative of owning the Bay Area, making Northern California home market 2.0. We kick off the year with an exhibition game against the San Francisco Giants. Luckily, with our stadium setup, we are one of the few teams that have almost 10,000 parking spots surrounding our stadium. In a lot of ways, it's a negative. because fans have to drive to the game. You're disconnected from a downtown experience. You've got to get in your car or Uber or transit to get back towards downtown. And so what we like to celebrate is that the Coliseum is one giant tailgate. It's the last great dive bar in baseball is one of the nods that we have. So to kick off the partnership, we thought what better way to introduce yourself than come be the presenting partner of our exhibition game, and we'll throw the biggest tailgate, to start the 2020 year. So just again, kind of a fun storytelling element. And then the game this year was actually set to be on a Monday night, which is typically a slower night in the on-premise beverage location. So for ELYSIAN, how do you use this as a point to get every bar owner, every restaurant owner, general manager out to celebrate, enjoy their product, and get to know their team? So a great sales driver. Again, we're just more so planning these ideas in that conversation. Next, A's Cast. This is our radio network. We went 100% to a streaming broadcast for the general Bay Area, as well as we have some terrestrial radio stations throughout the rest of Northern California. So this is some programming that we've actually done kind of on a sparing basis in 2019, but this idea of really launching an A's Cast live roadshow. And again, in conjunction with ELYSIAN, really going out to some of those key accounts that they have to host these official watch parties. This is one of our broadcast talents, Chris Townsend, pretty popular in the community here. So this idea of working with ELYSIAN, really being a traffic driver to those accounts and continue to build that goodwill. It gets our brand out there, it gets their brand out there. Definitely a win-win just idea and pretty turnkey to execute. Nothing earth-shattering, but hopefully will help sell some product. And then just one other storytelling elements. We host an annual beer fest here. So just again, that association with the club. We've got a fan base that probably not too different than others, but we move a ton of product during baseball season. And then all of our beer partners do benefit from the Raiders previously having their product poured during then. So we love to tell that story. And then just, again, some more of that storytelling. How do we really promote the garden? How do we promote the space? Some of that in-stadium activation. Nothing too sophisticated here, but just general fan communication. Really off an example of kind of what I shared on our values as an organization. We participate in a week of giving every December. This is a photo of an all staff community project that we all participated in. And similarly enough, our friends at ELYSIAN during a similar time period did a community impact project like this as well. So just really showing that this example was done with our partners at Ashby Lumber, which is a Northern California lumber distribution point. Again, similarly, they care about selling lumber and selling wood products to general contractors as well as larger accounts, but they also know the value of giving back in the community. So we know that not every partner shares the same philanthropic goals, but it just in our sharing of what we value and what ELYSIAN values, we know that there's an opportunity to do some work together. And yeah, here's a short example from a project that they worked on with Plymouth House up in Seattle as another example of ways that we can extend the partnership into the community.
Hey, John, let's have a little fun and go back to that wider shot, the one before this one.
Yeah.
How many bobcats are in that photo? And maybe you could put your cursor on them if you can find them real quick. I
got Spencer, undergraduate bobcat right here.
Right.
1 second.
Your head of group sales is Josh Feinberg. Is he in there?
He is. Just to call him out,
yep.
This beautiful man right here, Wade Martin.
All right. How about Mr. Zabo? Where's he?
Knowing Andy, he's probably somewhere in the front. He wants that FaceTime. I'm located right here.
Right?
Oh God, where's mine?
Have you ever counted up how many Bobcats are within the organization?
We had 6. Spencer recently left us to go down to the Fiesta Bowl.
Okay.
Adam Watts, who's another Bobcat undergrad, he's in this photo. And then Michael Rogers as well is another Bobcat undergrad who's in this photo.
Okay. And Johnny had a quick question for you on, you can advance to the slides, you go up to the next one, but on the community activations. So go ahead.
Well, I thought of it before you showed this slide, which is funny, but I was just wondering, of course you showed that slide with an example that you found, but just kind of finding Elysian's community impact and what they really value. Is a lot of that based on research you guys do, or talking to your contact to kind of gauge what they're doing and interest in this community, since it's different than what they do in Seattle, and what they might want to do moving forward and how that might align with your community impact?
Yeah, I think it's a combination, and no different than, while you're getting to know any other person in the world. When you bring up a topic and it starts in the conversation, you can kind of get a general sense of how much they lead with that topic, how much it comes up in conversation. I think with Elysian, and again, this is not rocket science, but really looking at some of their social media pages, scrolling through their Instagram, their Twitter, you can even tell right now through COVID-19 how much they really wrap themselves around the communities that they do business in. They are very proud to be a Seattle brewery. I think and actually this was a nugget that had come out from some other conversations we've had in the craft beer space, but for these craft breweries, they have done an amazing job of entrenching themselves in their home market. Just like Jackie O's as the example in Athens, they have integrated themselves directly in the Athens community. Their biggest challenge is when they grow their market share and they grow into other markets, how do they make sure that they stay authentic to who they are, and taking those same pillars and principles, if they truly are within their DNA, it'll naturally come out as they expand in those other markets. Might be not as rich of a story because they're not, born and bred there, but they allow those values to come out in the way that they do business.
Okay, thank you.
And I actually did find Feinberg. He's actually, Josh is sitting right here.
Wait a minute. We'll get you to go full screen. Where is he?
Yeah, we got Josh right here. Yep. And then Michael Rogers, who's Josh's right-hand man on the group sales side as well. He's right there in the crowd.
All right. Well, you got a great representation. One other thing I just want to throw at you that, part of the benefit of being in that Ohio alumni network is you could pick up the phone and call somebody at another team that in some cases might be willing to share, but if they're a Bobcat and they already have a deal with this microbrew, they're really going to open the doors and coach you up. Is that safe to say? And I'm sure you found that on other deals.
Absolutely, yeah. Actually, on this example, I reached out to Jeff Webster up in Seattle with the Seattle NHL. Just to, again, he's from there, so he could talk both to their authenticity. He's probably had the product. He's probably been to their tap house, as well as understood if there were, a prospect or a potential prospect in the space. So, that, and in this example, in addition to Jeff, I had a friend from another agency connect me with a gentleman at the Seattle Sounders who was involved in the deal. So yeah, getting those nuggets and information. It really, in the example of Seattle versus Oakland, we're not competing for the same dollars. So that ability to share and use each other as a resource, it definitely exists. And it's if you're not doing it, you're missing out.
Gotcha. Thanks. All right, how many slides you got left?
I think just last run through on some of the hospitality. We can pause after that.
Okay.
We just wanted to highlight here. Little pause on the screen. we just wanted to pause here and just, again, tell that story from a customer engagement. What are some ways that ELYSIAN can leverage this relationship and bring out some of their key accounts in the market. And then as well, just touching on some of these VIP elements that we can offer, and just letting them know that once you become a partner, just like their peers at Anheuser-Busch, we really bring you into the A's family. So that concludes the presentation.
All right. Well, let me get everybody back full screen here. Can't thank you enough for walking all of us through this presentation and taking time out to share with us, because with your permission, we'll get this recorded and put you into our virtual content for Symposium.
No, that sounds great. I appreciate the time, and thanks for having me, Jim.